Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Rory Smith in the GB newsroom. Despite a double by-election loss for the Conservatives, the Prime Minister says a victory in Uxbridge and South Ruislip shows the next general election is not a done deal. Labour won Selby and Ainsty, whilst the Liberal Democrats took Somerton and Frome, both overturning majorities of around 20,000. Sir Keir Starmer says voters want change, whilst the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey, says the support for his party has strengthened. Around 3,000 asylum seekers will be housed in non-hotel sites by the autumn. This includes Bibby Stockholm Barge in Dorset and former military sites in Essex and Lincolnshire. It's part of the government's plan to reduce the use of hotels in housing migrants, which costs taxpayers £6 million a day. The trial for former US President Donald Trump's classified documents case will take place on the 20th of May next year. That's less than 6 months ahead of the US presidential election. Trump is the current frontrunner for the Republican nomination in that race. Boris Johnson will hand over messages from his old mobile phone to the COVID-19 inquiry. It's after technical experts managed to recover them. The former Prime Minister was initially told to stop using the phone in 2021 after his number was leaked online. He then reportedly forgot the passcode. But a spokesman says Boris Johnson is pleased the messages have been recovered. Tributes continue to pour in for legendary American singer Tony Bennett, who has died at the age of 96. He released more than 70 albums over his 7-decade career. He sold millions of records around the world, winning 20 Grammy Awards. He died in his hometown of New York. The government is to consider creating a national memorial in honour of the late Queen Elizabeth II. A committee to decide on a monument is expected to be announced ahead of the anniversary of Her late Majesty's death. Queen Elizabeth died on September the 8th, aged 96. Well, in other royal news, Kensington Palace has released a photo of Prince George to mark his 10th birthday. Prince George is pictured smiling for the camera, wearing a check shirt and teal trousers, while sitting on a set of steps in Windsor. The future king celebrates his birthday tomorrow. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now though, time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm your host, Andrew Doyle. In my comedy Arsenal Tonight, I've got the antique musket, Lewis Schaefer, and the MI6 big dog, Nick Dixon. How are you both doing?
M16.
Isn't that the right?
I think M16 is the gun.
Oh, is that right?
I don't think I'm a whole spy network.
I think you
although
are.
I could be.
I think you do yourself down, Nick.
Yeah, you're right.
How are you
right.
today, Lewis?
Actually, that's funny because when I first came to this country, I thought it was M15 and M16. So
Is it not?
No, it's not.
Oh, who knows? It's all
MI5.
spies and guns and all the kinds of things I'm really not interested in. But what I am interested in are Saturday's front pages, so let's have a look. So we're going to start with the Daily Mail. Now, of course, on these front pages, they're all going with the by-election results. Mail's got go true blue or face wipeout. And the Telegraph is running with PM urged by Cabinet to abandon eco policy. The Guardian, shattered defeats for Tories in cry for change. The Times has got Sunak aims to divide and rule after poll setback. The Express, Rishi, all isn't lost. Next election, not a done deal. And finally, the Daily Star. They're going a bit different. Pentagon chief, the fear of a nasty ET surprise keeps me awake at night. And those were your front pages. And kicking off this in-depth look into Saturday's papers, we're going to start with the Daily Mail. Lewis, what are they running with?
Well, it's good news. The good news is go true, blue, or face wipeout. After two by-election disasters, Tory grandees warn Rishi. But the story basically is about the fact that the Tories could have lost two elections, and they only lost one. And
well, they lost two.
They lost two.
They lost two, and they won one.
And they won one.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? I mean, so however, they retained the Uxbridge seat by a slim margin. I mean, it went down from, what was it, around 700 majority to around 400?
No,
7,000 majority?
7,200 majority to a 4...
That's not good, is it?
No, it isn't good, but it could have been worse because down in Somerset, they lost 19,000.
Yes.
And up in Selby and Ainsty, they lost by 20,000. And these are huge turnarounds.
So the key thing about this Daily Mail coverage is they're saying you've got to be more conservative. Go true blue. That's going to save you next time.
Yeah.
Nick, is it the case that Rishi's Tory party isn't really a Tory party?
Yeah, of course. Everyone knows they're a socialist party. They're eco-socialist.
They're a socialist party?
Yeah, with a few people who are cool, like my mate Lord Frost, who's been on my podcast, and just throwing that in. He's here saying that this is bad, and, you know, of course, he's saying they need to learn from this. And the sort of basic overall feeling is, one, there's a bit of Tory apathy. Tory voters tend to stay home to express their disapproval. They just stay home. They're not going to vote Labour or Lib Dem. They just don't show up, which a lot of that has happened.
That's what Frost is saying, right?
That's right. And the other thing is that green policies are very unpopular, which everyone's learning. And as Frost points out, this time they hit Labour, it could soon hit the Tories unless they rethink heat pumps and the 2030 electric car deadline nonsense.
Yeah, OK. So, Lewis, is there anything that they can do, do you think? I mean, Nick's view is that the Conservatives have to be more conservative. But really, at this point, is it not the case that Labour have basically got it in the bag for next time?
Well, I think it's lost. There's something about this country where they spend so much time on one political party that by the time the elections come, they're just so fed up with that political party, they're willing to just throw the whole thing out.
You think it's just we get bored easily?
Well,
we like change.
If you keep them in for too long, way too long, and they have too much power when they're in, and so it's kind of like being married to the same woman who... You wouldn't have...
You say they have too much power, but the funny thing is that Tory ministers can't actually get anything done because the civil service is against them. So they've been in for 13 years, but they sound like the opposition. When they talk about things, they sound like they're already opposition.
But they can do something about a partisan civil service if they put their mind to it. Like, they could actually resolve that. They've been talking about sorting out the quangos for years, and they never actually do it. And now they're paying the...
Or even if they don't do anything about the... It appears to me, as an outsider, that they don't make a big enough stink that they're not able to get the job done. One or the other.
With this in mind, let's move on to the Times, Nick. Obviously, front cover of the Times, there's the photo of Prince George, which is everywhere as well, and the main story is, again, by-election.
Yeah, so they've gone with Sunak aims to divide and rule after polls setback, which is a little bit dramatic, but basically he's going to apparently focus on migrants, trans rights and crime, and it's a more aggressive campaign. He's saying the election's not a done deal. He's saying there needs to be, or they're saying there needs to be a change in pace, emphasis and approach, and that there's going to be more edge to him. But it's not particularly convincing because Rishi, he obviously needs to do something, but he's not really an edge kind of guy. He's not
edgy, is he?
He's not really. He's smooth and managerial. He's not really inspirational. Ironically, who they need now is Boris to get them out of the mess that Boris got them into.
It's very interesting. This article says that the fact that they held on to Uxbridge was a relief to Downing Street staffers. One of them said, "We're worried if they lose all 3 by-elections, Rishi will be in a horrible mood." I think they've got more things to worry about, haven't they?
Yeah. Well, maybe he's very angry.
He doesn't strike me as someone who's capable of anger.
I think it's a problem with democracy in this country and how leaders are chosen, how they're all coming from within the party.
Well, Nick makes a good point, doesn't he, Lewis? That he is very managerial. He's not a Churchillian figure. He's not the kind of person who can inspire. Boris had a lot of people hate him, a lot of people love him, but even that kind of polarising figure has the capacity to inspire. He doesn't inspire me, but he does inspire.
But you're saying Boris is like Marmite and Sunak's more like a sort of diet margarine.
That's a very good way of putting it. It's interesting. This article also saying focusing on migrants, Lewis. Migrants, trans rights, crime. Even if they were to sort of pick up the baton on all of these things where it's been perceived that they've dropped the baton, will it make a difference?
I don't think so. I think because people don't I think their own party doesn't trust them. This is the impression that I get.
Hey, that's actually a really interesting point. Some of the polls have suggested that die-hard Tory voters, that a lot of them now would no longer vote Tory.
Well, the big problem is Sunak was never elected. They wanted Boris, then the members wanted Truss, and no one actually wanted Sunak. And we don't actually know if he can win elections, if he has it in him, because we've seen with Ron DeSantis, just to make an analogy, he seemed good on paper. Then he's launched his campaign, it's been a complete flop, and he just doesn't have that sort of Trump-esque charisma, just as Sunak doesn't have the Boris charisma.
You never know until the election comes up, because, we thought Theresa May could campaign. She called that early election, and then she hid away, saying, I'm not going to go on debate.
But the frustrating thing for me is he actually can do some good stuff, like this bank thing, and they seem to have gone on top of it straight away.
Right.
But Sunak does try and do some good things. I have nothing against him. It's just, does he have enough to turn him around at this point? Seems unlikely.
And what about the Telegraph? Telegraph very much focusing, Lewis, on eco issues in their coverage of the by-election results.
Yeah, this is a big issue. The Prime Minister urged by Cabinet to abandon eco policy, and that actually, I know that from my little ville of Nunhead, they're constantly instituting eco policies, but they're talking about the ULEZ, no boiler, no ban on cars.
Yeah.
They're saying these are the issues that are affecting the people of the country.
Well, I mean, it would suggest from the by-election results that there's some evidence to support that view, because, as Nick said, the Tory voters are generally staying in, but not in an area where this eco-policy could affect them. This was seen as a protest against the ULEZ policy. These Tory voters came out, and the Tories managed to hold on to Uxbridge by a sliver.
Yeah.
So, Nick, is it the case that, they've talked about migrants, trans rights, crime, etc. Maybe it is this net zero policy that if the Tories actually sort of made some kind of statement about it, they could turn this around.
Yeah, and it worked for them, didn't it? Because they won because of the ULEZ. But the danger of it is that Labour can then dismiss it and say that was just a one-off because of the ULEZ, so it doesn't really indicate anything. But you're right, because you've got to ask the question, how many people really want these net zero things? You've got to be quite financially insulated, and you've got to be someone where if it hits your bills, you believe in it so much that you go, tell you what, I'm going to take the hit. How many people are there really like that in the country? When the pinch really comes, when the cost of living crisis, everything's more expensive, you've got to have a ridiculous heat pump or an electric car or more money on your bill, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Who's actually really that dedicated to net zero that actually people are voting, and it turns out they don't actually want these kind of things.
And when it comes to votes, money really, really counts, and most people don't earn very much. Most people are going from pay packet to pay packet.
Yeah.
And the net zero is targeting the poor, or at least it's going to affect adversely the poorest in the country.
And it's like a weird thought. It's like a religion, net zero. No one understands what it is. I had to look it up myself, what net zero means. And you can't see it practically. And it's not just this. Like in where I live, they've got low traffic neighborhoods, which are choking the thing. They're adding parking restrictions because they don't want to keep people off of the streets. And all these things add up. And maybe... I still don't think that people believe that the Tories are the party that actually going to put this through.
Yeah.
And the ULEZ was particularly unpopular because it starts in London and then it just expands to Kent and all these other areas surrounding, and you just feel like they just want to expand it across the whole country and just ban cars.
That's Labour's plan, isn't it, to sort of expand it further afield? OK, we're going to the front cover of the Mirror, Nick. They are doing something very different on their front cover.
Very different. They've got lionesses ready to bring World Cup home, and they've gone with roarers on. There it is. And it's about women's football, which, as we'll learn later when we talk about Sadiq Khan's new advert campaign, you basically have to like or it's a hate crime.
So that's a picture of Millie Bright who is apparently
I believe you.
captain of the
Yeah.
So are they playing at the moment or something?
They're playing in the World Cup, apparently. I've never watched it, never will watch it, and that makes me some sort of basically an extreme misogynist now.
Well, speaking of which, Lewis, I mean, are you a fan of women's football? You can redeem yourself right now by saying you're a big fan and naming every member of the England squad.
You know what? I'm not. You know what? If I want to, you know, my own kids. I don't want to say bad things about it. Let them play if they want to play. They enjoy playing.
It's nice you let them.
Let them play. You know what it's similar to? It's similar to letting people go into like strip clubs and whoop and holler at some guy, the Chippendales, whatever. I don't think women don't.
It's like strip clubs.
They don't.
You've managed to outdo me. It's so impressive. I thought I'd said something bad. And it's so much worse.
I don't even understand your point, Lewis. Not for the first time.
Because a lot of women now, they like going to see Chippendales type dancers, and I personally don't think that they're that excited to see these people dance.
Hang on, who are the strippers in this analogy?
Nick, don't pursue this. It doesn't make sense now, and it's never going to.
No, I'm saying the men are the strippers, and they're saying millions will tune in to Big Clash.
Well, they probably will. Didn't they all tune in quite a lot in the Euros?
Millions in this country? Will it get 2 million people
I don't know.
watching?
The lucky thing is I don't like football anyway, whether it's men or women, so I'm not involved in this debate, which is great for me. Let's move on to the front cover of the Daily Star. Lewis, something about aliens, this?
I don't know the entire story. It's basically they'll probably take some comment. They say this is a Pentagon chief. The fear of a nasty ET surprise keeps me awake at night.
Yeah, I don't think he actually meant ET as in the character.
No,
he meant the idea that there might be aliens.
Yeah.
And this Pentagon chief. Yeah. There's been a lot of whispers and talks about aliens from US authorities of late. They're talking about declassifying documents because there are claims that the US government has, well, actual alien corpses, alien ships. Nick, it's all nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I get suspicious, Andrew. The more, like I've said this before, the more they say the aliens are real, the more I go, maybe they're not. And when the chief alien hunter is saying he's worrying in the night about aliens, I just think they're over-egging it a bit. It's like they want us to think there's aliens, so now I'm thinking maybe there isn't, even though I thought there was.
You used to think there were?
I used to think there were. I watched the Bob Lazar documentary. It's incredibly compelling. He's worked on alien craft for years. And then the Pentagon admitted, there was a video of the very fast-moving UFOs. Tucker Carlson says they're real. He's spoken to insiders. Yeah. But then when they say things like this, I go, why do they keep pushing it?
I don't believe it. I could believe that Lewis is an alien.
Well, I am an alien. No, I'm registered. I'm a registered alien.
Okay.
But at the
legal
end of the
alien.
day, like I've said last week about this exact same story, which these people are obsessed with, is that America's the only country where aliens actually visit from outer space. Nobody comes to Britain because of this ULEZ thing, because of the parking restrictions.
The aliens are protesting against our environmental policy. That's why they won't visit.
There's no place to land, and they're afraid they're going to be attacked.
They can only land in the deep south in America in a big field.
Well, there's room in America.
Well, I hope one day they find alien bodies in the basement of Downing Street, and that'll prove you wrong, Lewis. Anyway, that's up for part one. But coming up, we find out what we do to curb Lewis Schaefer's behaviour, what you might be offered at university, and we're going to ask if we're finally going to find out what's in those mysterious WhatsApp messages on Boris Johnson's phone. See you in 2.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle. With me, I've got Nick Dixon and Lewis Schaefer. And we're going to start this section with The Independent. Nick, and Sadiq Khan and Ramesh Ranganathan, are they best friends now?
Well, this is an absolutely ridiculous campaign that Sadiq Khan has launched. It's basically called the Mate campaign, mate with 3 A's.
Mate. Like a sheep.
Yeah, mate, exactly. No one's ever said that word. It's not a word. But, so the headline is Sadiq Khan and Ramesh Ranganathan, women still aren't equal in politics and comedy. And so it's a campaign he's launched, and there's an interactive video, and I've watched it so you don't have to. It's a long video where there's a group of lads, and one of them who comes in, the white one, of course, starts saying misogynist things, and you can click a button that says mate, and it stops the video, and one of the other guys will go, mate, you shouldn't say that, and then the guy's like, you're right. If you click too early for a laugh, it says you're a bit trigger happy, but if you click the first time he says something, it goes, well done, you stopped it early. But wait, Andrew, if you wait through the whole video, it starts to play a dark synth sort of and it gets all evil, and he says worse and worse things, and at the very end he chastises you and says, why didn't you stop me? He looks at the camera and says, why didn't you stop me? Because you let him just go off with his toxic white maleness and you didn't say mate. Yeah. It's the most pathetic, insane thing. And it's trying to link banter explicitly in the text underneath. Mild banter with violence against women, murder and rape, basically.
OK, can you clarify for me? Yes. What, according to this campaign, constitutes misogyny? Is it like
everything?
Is it two male friends sitting there saying, oh, she's very nice, or she's attractive?
It's like, oh, there shouldn't be women commentators on the football. It starts with stuff like that, Andrew, and then immediately gets to sort of serial killing. If you look underneath, it says, what is misogyny? Some of the things classed as misogyny, I'm not joking, were self-confidence and being competitive. That's in the list.
Is this just the thing that Christina Hoff Sommers writes about, which is where they try to effectively paint masculinity or any kind of male heterosexual behaviour as inherently problematic, to use their word?
Yes.
And that men ought to be socialised, or boys ought to be socialised as girls?
Yes, and just to give you one more, you're not allowed to say the phrase, my ex-girlfriend is crazy. What if she was crazy? I mean,
right.
You know...
Lewis, this is an interesting one, because obviously, if men are... You know, no one is for misogyny. If men are saying horrible things about women, that's not good. If men are assaulting women, that's criminal and they should be thrown into prison. So no one's arguing with any of that. But when it comes to just, you know, male friends engaging in banter about the women they find attractive, whatever, where's the line?
Obviously, we're heading towards doom. I don't know where the line is. I'm like in shock with this entire thing. It's like...
You don't want to say anything now because it's all misogyny.
Because basically everything that I say, I've said, how many times have I said women are horrible?
Right, look,
is that a misogynistic thing?
Yeah, that would be like me. I'd be clicking immediately.
But can I ask you, I mean, you know, speaking as someone who isn't in the heterosexual community, like, isn't it the case that straight men know when they're saying things that are across
That's the whole point. It's fun. That's how men talk. It's an attack on how men talk. And what's ridiculous is that it's obviously a response to Sarah Everard and all that. I understand that. But this will not stop a single domestic assault. It will not stop a single rape or murder, obviously. And they admit they're using behavioural science. They're trying to sort of nudge. Remember the nudge unit. Yeah. And then the Ramesh part is strange as well. Ramesh has always been nice to me in comedy. Nothing against Ramesh, but he's in this absurd video where he does a sort of pseudo stand-up campaign, set. It's on a stand-up stage in front of an audience, but what it actually is just propaganda as part of this advert campaign, and then he intersperses in one version with an interview with Sadiq Khan, and Ramesh is saying you should just say may, and it's incredibly cringe, and it's very, very strange. It's using the sort of the guise of comedy to make this weird political point.
What's the connection with comedy? Because it says he's quoted as saying that it's still very difficult for women in the stand-up circuit. Is it, though? I wasn't aware of that. Lewis, is that true?
Well, it is harder for women because they've got such pressure on them to be supposedly funnier than a lot of them are not funny.
Do they?
May, sorry. No, but what it is when they do things like this, and when you see a woman comedian, some of my favorite comedians are women. Joan Rivers.
Some of your best friends.
Whatever. But if someone goes on stage and they're not funny, do you have to laugh now?
No, I've never understood. Well, I've got I just book the funniest people, and they could be women, they can be men. I don't even think about.
Yeah, but you don't even know, and I know you use this gay card to get yourself out of it.
It's a useful card.
Yeah, it's totally. And you know what it is? I'm making an announcement today. I am gay. There's only a choice. It's like this.
You don't get to do that, Lewis. You have to prove it.
He identifies as gay. How dare you?
How I don't have to prove it.
No, you could be a celibate gay.
No, you don't mind your own business what I do.
To answer your question, Andrew, the connection with comedy was very tenuous. What it seemed to me was they were just using Ramesh to sort of get the message across, much like Elton John said, get the vaccine or something.
Okay.
That's how it seemed to me.
Yeah. Fair enough. Right, well, we're going to move on to Saturday's Eye now. Has Boris suddenly got his memory back, Lewis?
Yes, well, here's Boris Johnson. I got into trouble the last time we had one of these stories. Boris Johnson's pandemic WhatsApps retrieved from his old phone and will go to COVID inquiry. And he had a phone that was the government phone, that he was using the government phone. That was the government phone they were using for like 20 years. And then he returned it, and he didn't have the code. And they wanted to use the code to basically prove.
So my understanding is that there were all these WhatsApp messages relating to the COVID policies, right?
Yeah.
And Boris Johnson said, look, I've given you my phone and I've given you all the messages and I've done it all. But what he didn't say is he had a phone prior to May 2021. So this is a different phone.
Right.
And he said he forgot the code.
Yeah.
And so there's all this back and forth about it. But what's been a bit weird about this, Nick, is that it's 10 days late. The High Court has said you have to give us the phone. We have to have access to the messages. It's 10 days late and we haven't seen this in the press for over a week. No one's been talking about this. Why?
I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a phone known as Phone 1. Is that the one you're talking about?
That's the one
there's Phone 1,
Phone
which
1.
is kind of sounds weird anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not been in the press. It's because they normally love Boris.
It had to go to the Cabinet Office.
Okay.
And the Cabinet Office had to look at it.
But isn't it quite serious when the High Court says you need to hand something over and it's just not done?
But I think they agreed that it would go to the Cabinet Office, and the Cabinet Office would only give the stuff that was relevant to. I don't know how the Cabinet Office would know what's relevant to this. This is just more. Let's blame Boris Johnson for the ridiculous behavior that we all did.
Aren't you concerned to see what they were talking about while they were setting these policies that affected everyone's lives? Aren't you interested? Don't you think we have a right to know?
No, because we all know that it was a lie.
I want to see
Nick.
No, I want to see the. It says they'll leave out messages that are unambiguously irrelevant. I want to see those. Those sound like the fun ones. They're only because Boris is like saying, look, it's going to be unredacted, but only the relevant messages. But Boris seems to. I'm not sure that he doesn't want this. I mean, he's saying he's happy to give them in. My theory is, I've said it before, he's got nothing to lose, but these messages will make other people look really bad and help Boris in some way. I could be wrong.
Very interesting. Okay, well, we've got to move on now to The Independent, and how are things looking for tenants now, Nick?
Yeah, so this is rent prices hit new record as tenants facing crisis like never before, and it's not great, Andrew. Now, I thought $2,000 per month for a one-bedroom in my area was bad, but it turns out the average rent in London is $2,567.
Yeah, you've got it sweet.
Yeah, that's cheap where I am, and it's outside London. 1,231, and Rightmove are saying this is the highest in their 12-year history of covering this metric. So you find a tenant in average of 17 days because the supply and demand is so off, and 16% of properties that were on as rental are now on as sales, so landlords are selling up. But it's not like it's a great time for landlords either, because they've got this thing where it's harder and harder to evict people, and buy-to-lets are kind of miserable now. So
how do you get on the property market with these levels of rent? And of course, that's dead money. It's not going anywhere. You know?
Yeah, it's shared ownership, which I've done, which is awful as well. And there's no great options.
So this is bad, isn't it, Lewis, for the younger generation as well? If they've got no mortgage, no house, they've got no investment in the future. It's certainly bad for the Tory party, because then they don't turn right-wing as they get older.
Yeah, because they don't own anything. Yeah, it is a really bad thing. But, I mean, basically, the Tories created this. They created this problem. Everybody created this problem. We created this problem by inflation. And the inflation was caused by us printing money, by us putting from the first housing crisis, we just printed money. We made it easier and easier to buy a house. Not easier and easier to maintain a house. Yeah. And now it's all gone to hell.
I don't think the Tories created it, because I mean, some people say Thatcher selling the council houses was part of it, but it's been going on a long time. We don't build enough, immigration, etc. All the reasons everyone knows.
Right. OK, well, we're going to move on.
Not the case.
Lewis, we're going to move on, I'm afraid. We've got to go to Saturday's Times now, and this one is about students being offered more extracurricular activities. What's this?
Where am I?
This is MI5.
This is MI5, yeah. The MI5 chief, Ken McCallan, warns students of a threat from hostile states. And
what does he mean?
He is MI5, which is internal security.
I always get them confused. MI6 is
like
spies,
the FBI,
right?
and MI6 is the CIA.
And MI5 are snoopers.
Yes.
And
so he's basically warning British universities to keep an eye on dealings with the Russians, the Iranians, and the Chinese.
Hasn't this always been the case? I mean, you know, these sort of hostile states have always gone to Oxbridge to recruit various people.
Yeah.
Isn't that the case? Usually gay people.
Of course.
Historically.
Why is that? And
they've got things to hide.
Gay people like Lewis.
Gay people like you.
New gay people. I'm a new gay. And
you're a new gay now, Lewis.
I'm a new gay.
So this is where you're gay, but you don't have to actually do anything gay.
I feel bad for my wife, who's listening to this right now.
She just found out the hard way.
But she would rather me be a misogynist and at least come home at night.
Nick, now you're a gay misogynist.
This is an odd one, isn't it, though, isn't it? So is it real? Is it true that
I think it's real,
Russia and China are going to go to our students?
Definitely China. Well, China are funding all sorts of universities, aren't they? What are the figures? They've accepted huge numbers of... 240 million British universities accepted with collaborations with Chinese universities. So that's a real thing. Basically, the message of this is avoid hot Chinese chicks who have a strange, suspicious interest in quantum computing, because they're probably trying to get your intellectual property, Andrew.
Is chicks an offensive term? Should I be saying mate?
You should say may. You should be clicking on me now.
Mate.
Lewis interrupts and goes may, and then we've won.
OK.
That's the only reason I did it, to see if you would.
I'm quite enjoying this now.
It didn't bother me at all. But I think what's funny about this is that we need to be told who our enemies are. These young kids, he's there saying, you know, you should be careful with Russians, Iran. Maybe they're not our enemies. Maybe if you have to remind people who your enemies are.
No, it's because they're subtle. They're now quite... The way it starts... China's always at war with us, but in very subtle ways.
OK, well, on that note, that's it for part 2. But coming up in part 3, we've got racy books, alarming dolls, and Greta Thunberg's least favourite beverage. See you in a moment.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Damp and breezy for many of us this weekend, particularly during Saturday, feeling cool under the rain, but signs of something a little brighter for many, albeit not for all, by Sunday. Weather fronts are streaming in from the west. They are now thickening up the cloud for many places, bringing spells of rain overnight to Northern Ireland, into western Scotland, northwest England, as well as much of North Wales. Dribs and drabs of rainfall for South Wales, southwest England, staying dry and clear for the southeast of England, although with the breeze picking up, a lot of cloud cover, it's a mild night for many. The one exception, northern Scotland, mid-single figures here, with some sunshine first thing. And actually, if you're after sunshine this weekend, northern Scotland's the place to be. 1 or 2 showers for Shetland, as well as Orkney. The odd shower for Aberdeenshire, but otherwise northern Scotland fine. Southeast England starts fine before some light rain arrives by the afternoon. It's outbreaks of rain widely elsewhere. A strengthening breeze, unseasonable conditions really, especially towards the southwest and west. Into Sunday, it stays breezy in the south, especially around coasts, but brighter skies eventually appear with quite a number of showers in the south. This area of rain across northern England will persist, and that's likely to lead to large rainfall totals. By Monday, that's sinking away, replaced by showers.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. We're going to start this section with the Mail. Nick, this is a bit of a concerning story about a book for children.
Oh, yeah, another one of these disturbing stories. So Yumi Stein's sex book for children tops Amazon bestseller list as critics pan the book for being too graphic, and they're saying let kids be kids, absolutely. And why is this being pushed to kids? That's what all the reviews are saying. This book, it has this usual thing we've seen now, and we see this all the time, inappropriate sexual stuff in these books. But the author's saying, well, you don't have to buy it, and you certainly don't have to buy it for your kids. But that's disingenuous because it ends up in schools, these things, they end up in libraries. And my question is always, why would you want to write a sexualised book for children? That's my question. What gives you the motivation to do that?
The phrase sex book for children just sounds so...
It's inherently disturbing.
I mean, Lewis, look, sex education, I understand the necessity for that, and that's done in schools or by parents, right? I get all that. But these sort of graphic... And there's been more and more of these where the books aimed at sort of talking through sex with pubescent kids, they're becoming more and more graphic. The illustrations are more graphic.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I think it's similar because the people on the left are all feelings. and they actually think that when they look at their children the same way they look at their dogs, and they think their dogs are as smart as them, and they think their children are as smart as them.
Yeah.
When the fact is they're children, and their dogs are their dogs, and they're not. So I think...
Lewis, I wish I understood you.
Andrew just looked at me there with like a pure bafflement.
You are a living, breathing mystery, Lewis.
I think I understand it. It's like you ever see somebody screaming at their dog in the street? They're screaming at their dog.
You're going to carry on with this.
You think the left think their kids are adults?
Yes.
Okay.
Why didn't you say that?
Well, that's what I said.
Because that's the kind of thing. That's just too succinct and concise.
They think their kids are adults.
Can I explain something, Lewis? The point of this show is we elucidate the stories. We make them clearer. We don't add layers of complication so the audience don't understand what's going on.
They should tweet me. Tweet me at Lewis Schaefer.
Don't go near him.
No.
He'll just confuse the hell out of you.
You understand what I'm saying?
Confuse the hell out of me.
When you see a parent of a right-wing person, whatever you call it, right-wing, they're always smacking the kid in the head. They know
they're not.
Yes, they are. Because they don't
parents in the 1950s.
Because they don't treat their children as adults.
Oh, they like Victorians.
Yeah, like Victorian times. They're saying, don't talk to your kids. You're going to do what I say. No.
Okay, this started out as a very serious subject, and it's ended in chaos.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the Telegraph now. And children's toys, Lewis. Should we be worried about children's toys?
Yeah, this is a scheme to give Barbie dolls to 150,000 children is alarming, and I think it's 150,000 children in this country.
Why is it alarming?
It is alarming because those toys, I think, are about £100 a piece, Barbie.
Well,
dolls,
who finds it alarming, according to the article?
Well, according to the article, I found out who finds it alarming. That's a really good question.
You didn't read this,
I did read it. Philippa Perry is a psychotherapist and author.
So a psychotherapist finds it alarming?
It finds it alarming.
But why is it alarming? Nick, look, the thing is, this is a good gesture, isn't it? 'Cause haven't kids played with Barbie dolls for decades?
What you got to understand, Andrew, is left-wing people think their dolls are adults. I don't know. No, that was a Lewis reference. Yeah, look, I see nothing wrong with it because they're saying, look, we don't have any free resources, so we're quite lucky to get these dolls. But other people are saying it's stealth marketing. It's far less sinister than Sadiq Khan's Mate campaign, but I guess it's somewhat similar. It's sort of saying, hey, here's our Barbies. You can play with it, but they're trying to sell dolls.
When I was a kid, I would love a free Barbie.
But the question is, would you get a Barbie? Because you're a guy. They're going to have to give out. Is somebody going to be there and say, hey, I want a Barbie. Why can't I get a Barbie? Say, you don't want a Barbie because you're not a...
I thought this was going to be about them worried about Barbie perpetuating gendered stereotypes.
That is in there. They're saying it's worried it would teach... And that's the worst thing, of course, we can possibly do, isn't it, to teach gender stereotypes, that men and women might be different. That would be terrible.
That would be a disaster.
But the other problem is that they're giving out diversity of dolls. There's going to be body type ones, disability ones, skin-toned ones.
There's going to be a fat Barbie.
And what happens if you get the wrong one? And they're
What's the wrong one, Lewis?
At 150,000.
What does a wrong Barbie look like, Lewis?
Mate, 150,000 children are getting these Barbies.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot, but... for 700 schools, that's only 20 per school.
Well, I'm more worried about Ken, because he's got some anatomical deficiencies, which I won't go into. Right, we're going to move on now. Do you keep the lights on when you watch the film mentioned in Saturday's Guardian, Nick?
Watership Down is now rated PG after 45 years of terrifying children. And I never, to answer your question, Andrew, really saw a big problem with Watership Down. I remember Barbie. I've got Barbies in my head. I remember Bambi being far more traumatic.
Well, Bambi's
when the
traumatic
mother
because
dies.
of the loss of the
Shocking,
mother.
yeah.
But it's not gory in the way that Watership Down is.
And the snowman, which is a classic, is surprisingly sad at the very end. The snowman just gone at the very end. It just ends, and that's it.
We've got an image here of Watership Down.
Watership Down. Yeah, that is quite scary.
It is scary. No, but it's worse than that. It's the blood and gore.
There's blood and guts.
It's the tearing the rabbits apart.
There it is.
I mean, that is like the stuff of Freddy Krueger right there.
It is quite bad, actually. I don't remember that. Maybe I saw a sanitised version.
No, it's very, very violent. And you're right, there are sort of, like the Snowman, poignant kind of children's stories. There's the follow-up to the Snowman, When the Wind Blows, where this sweet elderly couple who are worried about a nuclear war and they sort of settle in and build a hutch, and then they die of radiation sickness at the end. So
I didn't watch that.
That's the kind of thing that,
Apparently, one scene, a bird tells the rabbits to pee off. I don't know if I'm allowed to even say it on this show. Sorry, go on.
No, exactly. It's so
rude.
So rude. Lewis, Watership Down was always disturbing. I found it very disturbing as a child. It was very gory. But it's very interesting that it can go from a U rating, say 30, 40 years ago, now to a PG. Is this indicative of a society that is becoming more infantilized, that we're saying that people are becoming more hypersensitive? Is that what's going on here? Is there an anthropological trend that we can trace?
I think they're treating children as adults.
Lewis, I don't know what you mean by that. You keep saying that. I don't know what you mean.
Because they're thinking children can handle everything.
No, they're saying they can't because they're saying this should be a PG. There needs parental guidance to watch rabbits being torn apart.
You is bad.
No, you is good.
You is
you is like the classification.
The least.
Well, because I didn't understand that. Sorry about that. Remember, Andrew, I'm not
American.
from this country. I have no idea what's going on.
A you is like
anyone can watch. A baby can watch.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like you was bad.
No.
All right. I thought because PG in America is good. Okay, let me answer that question because this story goes against the vegan narrative because it shows animals killing each other. It shows animals dying without the hand of human, not at the hand of humans.
How is that against the vegan narrative?
Because the belief system is that animals live happy lives in the wild and die peaceful deaths surrounded by their friends.
I don't know a single vegan who would deny that there is a food chain and animals eat each other.
Also, there weren't vegans in 1978, were there?
Because
when it came out?
And you know something? Number one is I'm an American. I never saw this thing. I never saw this program.
Okay,
that's clear.
We've got to go to a break now, but coming up in the final section, we find out why Brits might be starting to smell, why sharks might be starting to buzz, and why Lewis might start eating his vegetables. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. And we're going to start this section by looking at the Mail. Lewis, Rachel Levine, what's she got to say about adolescence?
Well, she's the transgender Assistant Secretary of Health. She's the Assistant Secretary of Health. I thought she was like the Secretary of Health. Anyway, Rachel Levine claims that children can go through the wrong, quote-unquote, wrong puberty.
How can you go through the wrong puberty?
And argues gender-affirming care for kids is evidence-based, despite criticism. And you can't, how do you go through the wrong puberty? If you think you're a girl and you're in a boy's body, you're going through the wrong puberty, and that she recommends gender-affirming care, which means
a child can say, I think I'm in the wrong body, and the doctors have to believe them, right? As though children don't
lie,
but also get things wrong, misunderstand themselves. And also, Nick, is it not the case that in the vast majority of cases of gender dysphoria in youth, puberty is the very thing that resolves it?
Yeah, good point. Complete nonsense, complete pseudoscience. And this Levine person who just decided to be a woman, like 65, it has said that it has that gender-affirming care, which, as you know, is a euphemism, as you said, has the highest support from the Biden administration, and that's very worrying. And moderates and centrists should be worried, and they shouldn't vote Democrat, because even if Biden is too old, the next person will believe the same thing, and it's incredibly dangerous, evil stuff, and I hope people will vote against it.
Well, it's interesting they call it number one, they call it gender-affirming care. We who might be against it, if you're against it, we should come up with a new name, which is gender castrating care.
Yeah,
possibly.
mutilation.
It should be, but let me just say this, that name, you can tell she's a 65-year-old woman, which is I'm 66, and the name she chose for herself is the name of the prettiest girl that went to my school.
I don't think it was a gesture towards you, your experience.
But it wasn't. But that would be the exact same name that I would choose if I were going to be a woman, because I was in love.
No, I see what you mean. It's never Pauline or Renee.
Yeah.
Or Beryl.
Or Sue.
No.
Maybe it was. But at this, when I was growing up in Great Neck, Long Island, there was a girl, I'm not going to name Rachel, and she was so beautiful.
OK, well, we're going to have to move on because we're getting a bit too excited. We're going to go to the Times now. Lewis, what's this about soap?
Oh, this is soap. OK, sorry. Soap. It's saying people aren't using soap. Britain's turning into soap dodgers.
What, to save money because of the cost of living crisis?
Well, this is what they say. It's bull. It's absolutely boo. Number one is the amount of soap in hard soap is gone down.
Yeah.
Because people think that hard soap is disgusting. If you're of a certain age, you young kids, they're always using...
Well, yeah, because it gets covered in hairs and all kind of...
Yeah, so people think it's disgusting. Number two, I think they've lost faith in cleaning because the NHS told everybody you need to wash your hands to not get the COVID, and that was a lie.
That wasn't a lie.
That was a lie.
Washing your hands with antibacterial soap kills bacteria and, you know...
It kills bacteria, but it didn't kill the COVID. The COVID's a virus, which is supposedly real. And so it didn't...
Yeah, it is real.
No, you look it up, Google, Twitter me.
Sure some of the websites you look at.
Yeah, no, it says that washing your hands did not stop...
Right, Lewis, was 153 not enough Ofcom complaints for you? You're like, I can do better. I can do better.
I can prove
you've said the same thing again, and you've also said that you've gone like truther on washing hands.
Yeah.
But Nick, is it not the case? I mean, some people say that we wash too much and we actually damage our immune system by doing so.
You're speaking to someone who loves washing hands.
Yeah.
And, to be honest,
Are you a germaphobe?
I wouldn't go as far as saying that, because hand washing changed the world. It was one of the big things that changed the world and made it so much better and more hygienic.
That is a lie.
Historical
That
fact.
is a
Historical
lie.
fact. All
It
the other
is
stuff's
a
rubbish. I
lie.
didn't wear the mask. I obviously didn't take the safe and effective treatment.
Do you shower?
Hand washing works.
No, I have actually...
Never washed?
No, I've washed. I believed in soap.
He doesn't believe in washing.
But
he doesn't brush his teeth.
Now I know this. I live by this motto.
You don't brush your teeth.
Never put on your skin something that you cannot eat. You can put coconut oil maybe on your
Lewis
skin.
washes with beef.
But you should not use...
He rubs a steak on his face.
Try not to use any kind of soap.
OK, pearls of wisdom there from Lewis Schaefer. They might be fake pearls, I will say.
Yeah.
We're going to move on now to the Daily Star. What's all this about? Trash? One man's trash is someone else's treasure? What's this? What's this story?
What, the litter thing?
Oh, no, we've got... sorry. Cocaine sharks.
Oh, you want to do cocaine sharks? Go on, Lewis. That's your one.
Oh, that's my one. I mean, I was thinking the Coca-Cola being a littering. All right, we'll do that one. Were we skipping all?
Yeah, cocaine sharks.
Do cocaine sharks.
Do cocaine sharks. Cocaine sharks on rampage off of U.S. coast after feasting on cartels dump drugs.
You're going to have to explain that.
Is they bring the drugs by boat, and when the police come, they dump the cocaine in the sea.
And then the sharks eat the cocaine.
And they say that if the sharks ate the cocaine, they'd act all weird. They have spotted some sharks acting a bit weird, but basically the truth is they have no evidence that the sharks eat the cocaine. They have no knowledge of how the sharks would act if they ate cocaine. There's no reason for
it's a non-story.
No,
it's a complete non-story.
Lewis is completely wrong. They've seen sharks sort of chewing their face weirdly and talking excessively about themselves. So they know that they've been eating the cocaine.
I think that's...
Or they could have Lewis Schaefer syndrome.
That's evidence enough. OK, let's have a look at The Guardian now. Nick, you've got this one.
Is this the face keenies?
Yeah.
Let's do that one. That's a great story that we don't have a picture of, but if we did, it would be good. It's face keenies become popular in China as temperatures soar, and they're basically, I don't know if I'm allowed to use the phrase, but do you remember Pulp Fiction? There was a bring me the something, and then they had a mask. I don't know how to say.
Gimp mask.
Right.
You're allowed to say
I'm allowed to say gimp. They look like gimp masks.
Oh, so you set me up.
Nick, explain what these face keenies are. We're a bit unclear.
Because, well, it's to do with, like, they're worried about high temperatures and skin damage and stuff, so they're wearing a weird mask. They like masks in Asia. They're wearing a weird mask on their face to block those things out, and that's basically the story.
OK, look, we've got time for one more story, so let's try and get that done. It's the Mail, Lewis, and what's this about fake tan?
Oh, fake... it's basically, I never fake tan and used to be pale like Peppa Pig, and now my radiant glow is down for my eating habits. There's some woman in TikTok. Who says TikTok doesn't educate you? She's eating carrots. Carrots make your skin yellow.
3 large carrots a day.
But you know what? They make it seem benign eating carrots.
She looks fine to me. What's wrong with having a radiant glow?
Don't you know about big carrot, Andrew?
No, first of all, carrots are a completely manufactured product. They're high in fiber.
OK, Lewis, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off there in full carrot flow. Show's nearly over. Let's have another quick look at Saturday's front pages. So we're going to start with the Daily Mail. Go True Blue or face wipeout? That's the by-election results. The Telegraph running with the same story. PM urged by Cabinet to abandon eco-policy. The Guardian has shattered defeats for Tories in cry for change. The Times has Sunak aims to divide and rule after poll setback. And the Express has Rishi, all isn't lost. Next election, not a done deal. And the Daily Star, some nonsense about aliens. That's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guests, Nick Dixon and Lewis Schaefer. We're back tomorrow at 11 o'clock with Steve N. Allen, Lewis Schaefer and Leo Kearse. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, do stay tuned because it's time for The Breakfast Show.
Fibre is bad for you.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Damp and breezy for many of us this weekend, particularly during Saturday, feeling cool under the rain, but signs of something a little brighter for many, albeit not for all, by Sunday. Weather fronts are streaming in from the west. They are now thickening up the cloud for many places, bringing spells of rain overnight